I wanted to show you some of the engineering that went into this simple cleat that's hanging on the back of the van there for my ceiling boards. Cleat Eastwood, we'll call this. Cleat Eastwood. Anyway, I had to cut these saw curves into the plank, into the board, because the back of the van here curves. So I cut those curves into the board to teach it where I want it to bend. You see how easy that flexes? I'm not using any effort whatsoever to bend that board. It does what it's supposed to do because of these saw curves. Now this shape back here in the van, it bows, it's angled, and then there's a second radius on the bow at each of these points. It starts to happen a little quicker. It increases. So I put a second set of curves where those radius points are. I made a little channel back here for my ground nut to live. Like I said, I'm not changing anything on the chassis. That ground nut remains. I've got a little notch in this side for the wire on the other side. See that right in there? That lives there. And this thing fits in like it was a puzzle piece. And this is tied in 4 spots with riv nuts. This does not affect the structural integrity of this cleat as I intend to use it. I'm looking for down pressure. This edge is just going to support my ceiling planks. So there's no compromise to the integrity of this board by cutting those curves. This cleat Eastwood, is tied in that way, and it's also sitting on the shelf that you already know about, which is also tied in. So we've got down pressure tied in with these riv nuts, and then the entire cleat system is sitting on another support system. So we'll be fine. But when you walk around a van, you go, that's nice, that's nice. This is what goes into it. You see this as a simple piece of wood that's sitting up there holding ceiling planks. But there was some engineering that had to go into it in order to make it work without stressing the lumber, taking vibration, blah, blah, blah. Some of you wanted to know, how am I mounting my wall boards? Well, here we go. I've got my Luan. This is going to be encapsulated, as you know. The back of this is going to take some foam board insulation, and then the whole thing gets wrapped in my marine grade vinyl. This is the vinyl they use to make boat seats. So it's very durable, it's washable, it's cleanable, it's good stuff. Some people don't like sitting on it because it'll make you sweat. But in my use, we're not sitting on it anywhere. It's for the walls. So I've got my encapsulated wall board. I'm ready to put it up. Here's what I decided to do. I've got these pine inserts. I call these pickups. Okay, they're recessed into the van, and then I just screwed them in. Why am I using these? 2 reasons. The first reason, most important reason, we all know about my ceiling straps, right? The ones wrapped in leather. And we all know about the bolts, which are going to be changed out to pretty bolts. But I want the sight line of those pretty bolts to continue down the wall board that's also in white. If you remember me talking about it, the whole top inside of this van is the umbrella of white. And then it stops here, and then we start with something different. But everything is it's an umbrella of white. So these bolt pattern right down the line. That's what I want. That's important to me. I mean, you've seen people that screw things together, and it's fine. It's willy-nilly how they put the screws in, but it'll hold the piece. It's doing its job structurally. Visually, not so much. That is important to me. I think that's the mark of somebody that's a craftsman who pays attention to details. And that's what I'm doing. This is really important. Now go and look at other vans, go look at any other building material. You'll start to see, wow, that stuff's not lined up. Maybe I'm crazy, but this is how I like to do it. The other reason I went with this is because this is sheet metal. The van body is sheet metal, and it's thin. The earthquake, that's the inside of a van when you're driving it, I just don't feel there's enough bite in this sheet metal to hold that panel up with one screw. But here, I've got 3/4 of an inch of pine to go through, and I'm going to coat my screws with a glue. So when they go in, the glue sets. It gives it just a little more hold from working its way out. It's not going to work its way out, believe me. We're not holding up the Tappan Zee Bridge here. We're just holding a lightweight piece of wallboard. Here's another detail that's going to be in behind the wall that you'll never see. These are the wires for the lights, the courtesy lights that come with the van. I'm not using the courtesy lights, but I'm not removing the wires. You could take the van back to factory spec too if you wanted at some point. So in order to hold these wires here, again, in the earthquake that is the van, if I just tucked them in here, this is an edge. It's a smooth edge and it's a painted edge, but it's an edge. And I don't want that vibration against that edge. So what did I do? I took my massive loaded vinyl, which has so many uses, and I made a little pocket for it. So now it's against the insulation and the mass loaded vinyl. This wire will be just like this in 100 years when you pull it out. So this is the ceiling board assembly for bay 8, which is the last bay in the van. And I had to locate the holes for my LED puck lights. I've got about 14 of these puck lights going in the van in various places, along with strip lighting as well. So I had to fit each of these boards up in the bay individually. There's so many shapes and cutouts and changes in terrain up there that each board had to be sculpted individually. Okay, now I get them all in, they're cleated in, they're tied together nice and tight. Now what? I've located my holes. Now I got to get this thing out and drill the holes. Now I could have pulled them all out one at a time and just take the 3 boards I needed to cut my holes. I decided against that. What I did is I took a blanket and I made myself a little suspension support. I removed the cleat and I pulled out this entire ceiling unit as one piece. The reason I did that is because on the back side, once I got it out safely, I put some tape and staples into each board. Now it really does look like a barrel, doesn't it? But now I can take my electrical lines and be very specific with where they run. I could drop them through each of the holes to tie in the puck lights. I know exactly where I'm going to tape and locate them to exit this ceiling system. And see how nice see that bow? Isn't that nice? The tongue and groove gives you just enough flex. And it's still tight, but it gives you that flex. It's a perfect system if you're working with a bowed ceiling like that. So it's worked out really well. So that was the last thing I wanted to talk to you about today. And I'm going to go home and help my son and his new wife move into their new house this weekend. One more thing. I just want to give you a little lowdown on how I make a set, how I shoot, how I light. You see, this is in the shot. I left this in the shot intentionally because I wanted to talk to you about the little subtleties that I bring to my frame. I am in charge of every pixel in that frame. 16:9 aspect ratio, 19:20, 1080. It's all mine. And every single pixel has been looked at, addressed, and touched. So I have a light back here, and what that does is it just puts a little delicate highlight on this edge. You don't want to bring that light too far around, so it starts hitting your face and creating a flat light situation. My main light, they call it the key light in the film industry. It's my main light is over here with a slight cross. So this just gives you a little edge. Here's what it looks like when it's off. See, it's okay, but it's dead. Now that you know what it looks like when it's on, this is dead. It just brings a little something. And the point is that, like I said, that whole frame is mine to work with, okay? So I look at it as I'm keying up the camera. What do I have to fix? What do I have to address? I look at things are placed in from the edges deliberately. You didn't even notice it, but the cleat is running along the bottom edge of that frame. It's your border. It leads your eye in. So all of this stuff, you don't notice any of it. It just happens to you subliminally. Now, for instance, clutter. You don't really get a sense of the shapes here, but if I remove this light and I get it out of the way, it gives you a better sense of that tire and the body of the van. So that's the process I go through, is I look at the frame, I pull things in. This light here is actually, you think it's sitting here, right? But it's also lighting this area a little bit, but it's enough to bring a sense of quality to the image. The whole shot has to be addressed and lit. So, yeah, see that light? Now, if I left it like that, it would be annoying. I do that sometimes in my shooting because I do like to put a light in the shot. I like the flaring and the hazing that it produces. But there are other times where you need to block that light, and you use a gobo. That's what this is called, a gobo. And this is a black duvetine material that June sewed up for me, put it on the frames. So then that blocks it. Now, typically, that would all be out of frame. You wouldn't see it. I left it in so you could see what it is that goes inside a shoot like this. So like I said, everything is deliberate. See ya.